Hello, my name's Roger. I'm going to do a talk for Extinction Rebellion on the concept and practice of what I'm calling swarming, okay, which is a way of engaging with an opponent in an effective way. So, first of all, the disclaimer, I'm not making this video with any explicit call for action in any particular context, okay? The people watching this video need to make a decision for themselves whether the situation they're in gives them a moral case, basically, to do what I'm going to outline here. Good luck. Okay, so basically the idea of swarming, one way of approaching swarming is to look at it in terms of military strategy. So we're going to sort of start with that. So I'm going to do a little quick rundown of two ways of going about sort of military tactics. So one way, which for the sake of argument associate with the ancient Greeks and the Romans, is you have like a bang bang sort of like this. You have the opponents and they come together and they bash each other up until one side wins. Okay, so we're sort of familiar with that. So it's like hand-to-hand combat, as it were. Okay, but what a lot of people don't realise is another tradition of warfare or military tactics, which you might want to call swarming. So you might want to associate this like with the Mongol invasions of Asia in the Middle Ages. So what they did is you had all these like heavy cavalry, and they would be charging all these Mongol light horsemen, and the heavy cavalry would be charging them, and instead of making contact, the light horsemen would turn around and retreat, and while they're retreating they would like turn around and fire arrows at the knights. And I think there was a battle when they invaded Europe, and all these heavy knights from Germany and Poland came out, and they basically chased the Mongols for like 7 days across the plains of Hungary, I think it was, and by the end of it they were all dead, and the Mongols hadn't actually made any hand-to-hand combat. So you can see that sort of works because you choose the terrain on which you're going to win. Okay, so what I'm going to go through is how there could be a non-violent equivalent of that. Okay, so what we've had in social street protest for 30 years is this notion that you have the riot police and you go against them in this big battle and it's very heroic. But the logic here is you're basically going to lose that because you're fighting on a ground where you're not going to win, because obviously in terms of riot police and what have you, then they've got all the advantages and you haven't. Okay, so the advantages what you have as a social protest is speed and swarming, which I'll come on to. Okay, so there's research which says that the best way to bring about structural change in a society and bring down a regime that needs to be like removed for various reasons is through mass participation, civil disobedience. So the idea is to get a lot of people to make a protest and break the law in the city. Now the swarming variant of that is to have people in small groups moving around that city blocking the roads. Now, one thing everyone should understand is one of the big advantages of mass participation, civil disobedience, is it's not like all the young men that are basically leading roles. It's open and inclusive. So we've had to change location, but we're back. One of the advantages of the high participation civil disobedience is not about all the young guys running around, right? In fact, the young guys aren't really the main thing. The main thing in high participation civil disobedience is young people, kids, 14-year-olds, and old people, 86-year-olds, and women, because it means it's inclusive, because everyone can participate in what I'm going to tell you about. Okay, so what does swarming mean in the context of non-violent civil disobedience? Okay, so basically the name of the game is you don't come into face-to-face contact with the opposition, whether that's the police or the security forces. So when they're approaching, you're not going to win on that terrain, and you retreat. You regroup and you go somewhere else. Okay, so what does that mean? Heard behind me, yeah. God, makes all the difference. Oh dear. Right, okay, so So a face-to-face contact scenario, just to juxtapose it as it were, is you go to a road, you sit on a crossing and you stay there till the police come and then the police drag you off, okay? So that's what you might call a face-to-face situation. So a swarming situation is you stay there for a while, and I'm going to give you one or two different contexts of doing that. So what we've done in London, with pollution campaigns in London, is we've gone onto the road for 7 minutes, which is about as long as it takes before the... It's there.
That's all right, keep going.
Yeah. So 7 minutes is about as long as it takes for drivers to get quite pissed off with you. Now, just as a little aside, what you can do is, or what you should be doing, is have some food and you go and give the food to the drivers, like cookies or whatever, so that calms them down. You can see another video on roadblocks for more information about that. But the principle is you stay for 7 minutes and then you retreat, in inverted commas, i.e. you get off the road when the lights change to red, so the cars are still there, the lights change to green, the cars move forward, and then the lights change to red and you go back on. So you have two people basically in charge. You get off the road, on the road, sit down, and then you do another 7 minutes. Okay, so that's one scenario. Another scenario is you sit there until the police come. Okay, so they decide that they're going to arrest some people. They're probably going to bluff for quite a long time. But when they do actually start dragging someone off the road, everyone calmly gets up. You don't want to do any running or anything, and they head off in various directions and regroup around the corner on another nearby location and block the road again. Okay? Or another scenario is, if the police are going to be particularly aggressive, is you have scouts at the end of the road, you go and block the road, and then when the police come around the corner, everyone gets up, disappears into the crowd, and then goes and blocks somewhere else. Okay, so obviously this needs to requires non-violent discipline, and it requires some organisation, but only organisation within the particular group. So in its sort of classical form of swarming, you don't have to have a headquarters, it's not a top-down thing. You just have basic rules, which is be respectful towards the police and the passers-by and the drivers, maintain non-violent discipline, get up when the opposition is about to take you down, and go around the corner and do it again. Okay, so those are the basic rules. So it means several thousand people can do that. Okay, what else do I need to say? I can say a little bit about the key parts of a city which are vulnerable to being blocked, and the fastest way to actually close a city down if you think that is morally justified, which we're not going into. Okay, so a key strategic thing on this is to block the bridges, because the bridges will close the city, cut a city in half. So very quickly will bring the city to a halt. It also has like iconic sort of, status, as it were. You can usually estimate that if you're blocking a very busy street, the cars will go back about 1 kilometre every 10 minutes, thereabouts. So in some countries or places, you'll be able to see this on Google Maps, so you can see what the effect you're having. If you're going to block a roundabout, the best thing to do is to block the exit to the roundabout, one of the exits, because then it gets blocked around the roundabout, and then obviously it backs up on all the approach roads. And obviously, if you're going to do it, you should do it in the rush hour, and then it will go exponential around the city, i.e. you go back for 1 kilometre every 10 minutes, and then it blocks all the roads off that. So you think of a circle, the circle will gradually expand, so the area is going up exponentially. So a certain calculation, I guess, is 500 people could close down a city using these basic rules. I mean, obviously, ideally, if you've got a civil resistance model, you've got thousands of people. But the point of this is you don't need to have direct confrontation. Direct confrontation, is a risky strategy, because on that particular terrain, you've got a number of weaknesses, i.e. you don't have physical force and they do. And you don't need physical force to close down a city. And the literature shows that maybe between 5 and 10 days of closing down a city, the regime will come to the table and discuss your demands, or the regime will collapse. And obviously you're going to have to work out what to replace it with, which isn't the subject of this video. Sorry, just forgot this. Something else is, obviously, You want to make sure that everyone's wearing normal clothes, because if you want to disappear into the crowd or you're blocking a road and walking around it, then you don't want to be indistinguishable from the other people that are walking around as well. It's not about like trying to be a hero and wearing something amazing. It's about being normal, accessible, inclusive, and swarming away. And so that's the holy grail, as it were, of trying to create a political transition in a regime which is not holding to human values, let's put it like that. So lastly, this is really basic video. I'm really hoping that someone will make a better one. You can take this information, create nice graphics or whatever, take it down, put it back up, do your own, spread it around the world, and the best of luck to everyone. Thanks very much.